There we go. Okay, so for
That's awesome. No, I mean,
for
it's
those of us
totally
that missed
cool.
some of the things that we were just talking about in the recording, I'm viewing it on my computer, but I'm streaming on my phone, which is sitting on top of my computer, which sounds like a redneck setup for Blab. But apparently, Blab did not really like my computer today, and we wanted to get started on time. So we were just talking about, just to back up, just a brief moment for those who are going to watch this on the recording, we were really talking about how it's not good enough to be really smart. In fact, it's sometimes a disadvantage to just be really smart, because lots of people are really smart, or lots of people are really smart about lots of different things, and you put yourself in a box in your mind where you can't really tell the narrative and the story arc to really be that effective. And that's super important. And as we were saying to Ebong, he stands out. He's made a persona. As you said, you're 6'5", so you quite literally stand out as well. So let's take it from that point. I know I didn't mean to cut you off there, but I just want to make sure
No, it's
we're
totally cool.
capturing that for everybody. Thank you, appreciate it.
No, I mean, recording it is important. So
yeah.
that's I could be effusive if not sometimes reined in. So
yeah.
I totally get it. And for me, I would say this. I would basically say I completely agree. I agree with you. If you look at people who are out there, whether or not you like Donald Trump, and I know that there are people on here who are probably going to think this is crazy and I hate that guy. There's psychological going into this, whether it's the value you bring, whatever the value is that you bring. There's a way that you have to psychologically trigger your marketplace, the masses, and there are good ways and there are bad ways of doing it. There's a thin line between con man and salesman, right? It's not a bad thing. It's the same psychological trigger that's involved, right? And so it's a series of psychological triggers that are involved. And so when it comes to someone like Donald Trump, people either love him or they hate him. Either way, you know him, and if you know him, there's a way that there's an opportunity for someone to actually eventually turn that into dollars. And so it's imperative that, and then the value comes. So it's not enough just to be known. You got to show some type of value, because there are a lot of people who get 15 minutes of fame and then you never hear from them again. And there's a reason why that exists.
Right. And I'll jump in with that point on Trump. So I really like to be, politically agnostic on these, because I think entrepreneurship absolutely hits people from every belief system, race, creed, sexual orientation, political views. It doesn't matter. We don't need to get into that. The entrepreneur bug bites everybody equally. And what I will say, though, is if you think about Trump's power in the polarization of it, that you love him or hate him, you're not kind of like, he's kind of good or he's kind of bad. No, it's like, I love him, he's going to change America, or I hate him, I can't believe anybody would vote for him, I'm going to unfriend everybody. You've got everybody who's like one or the other. But the thing that's really interesting about him is that everybody listens to him, whether you love him or hate him. He's at the top of the stream, like every day of the week on my Facebook, right? I'm sure you too. He's like the top trending story. And whenever he just opens his mouth about anything. And the crazy thing is that if you look at all the other presidential candidates right now, that dude has more airtime than probably all of them combined, including Hillary. It's kind of crazy, because he's a media personality already. And that's wild.
And the amount of money they're spending, if you notice the amount of money, they're brands, they're big brands. I'm sure you've worked with a lot of them that have huge $1 million budgets. They can't even get the same amount of coverage that Donald Trump is. You can't buy enough coverage to get to where Donald Trump is. Like, you literally have to be a Saudi sheik oil baron in order to pay enough money to get enough attention for people to even hear of your voice and know who you are. And yet everybody knows who he is.
And that's so important. That's a wonderful point that you bring up. Buying attention. My point of view, now we don't get political, but we'll get political on this one, buddy. Buying attention sucks, right?
Yeah.
Everybody can smell it a mile away. If you just have something that's all heavy-handed and sponsored, and it's just got your logo all huge all over it on the top and the middle and the bottom, nobody cares. They're going to tune out. And you're going to get the guaranteed number of impressions in your press release and all that stuff. Not that I have any strong opinions on this whatsoever, as I'm sure you can tell. But, we know that a lot of the secrets behind this. And getting media attention doesn't mean you show up with barrels of oil or Trump towers or wheelbarrows full of money or enter lots of cash equivalent here. That's not how it works. You have to have people interested in you. The inbound marketing rules of the new rules of the web like that definitely applies. if people want you, if people identify with you, like you're a Facebook verified guy, right? I mean, you've got all sorts of stuff going. You've got all these books, you've got all these columns. Everybody's after you all the time. How many interviews? I can't even imagine, man. How many interviews must you just say no to? And
I get a lot. I get a lot of people asking me to do stuff like on a regular basis.
Yeah, and everybody probably tries to pick your brain. And
a
lot of times people don't have budget. And a lot of times I'll bet you, you may have started where you're just like, oh, please, sir. Oh, I would love to just, speak in front of 20 people at the Rotary Club. And now you're like, I don't even have time. I'm not even going to be in that city. And by the way, sorry, but my rate is X. And it just keeps going from there, right? Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
No, you're absolutely right. It's funny because I just had this dialogue, this thought earlier, actually dealing with this last week. So you're absolutely correct. And the bigger thing is this, like, it's funny because going into like the media attention, getting attention in general, people, a lot of times who are, small business owners, if you're an entrepreneur, you're on this and you're probably sitting here thinking, how do I get attention? I got to go get ads and market and all that stuff. And you hear these buzzwords that people teach you that you hear on online or some random free article that you got. The reality is this, like you mentioned earlier, no one wants to be advertised to. Nobody wants to be marketed to. Nobody wants to be sold. But you have to sell in some regard. I mean, you meet a person, a significant other, you're selling them about you and your personality. You're selling a client about yourself. You're pitching something to somebody. Everything's a pitch, right? And not to take it to that emotionless level, but there's two areas, going a little bit deeper now. There's two areas in which I when it comes to people asking me how do I get media attention, there are two things that I think people need to focus on, two either or areas. And you see the people who are dominating the news cycle, they're doing one or the other. So the first is you either have to be contrarian, right? Have a contrarian point to somebody, right? To whether it's a group of people who are influential or who can move the needle, or you say something that's influential, or something that's kind of thought provoking, gets people thinking a little bit weird. Or the other thing is you have to literally combine your message and align it to the current narrative that's going on nationally, whatever it is. So when you see a plane disappear, or you see like what's happening in Flint, Michigan with the water and people, the lead water and all that stuff. If you watch a lot of the TV stations and channels, they're inundated with water specialists, attorneys. Everybody has anything to do with water, environmental, EPA, anybody has that kind of experience becomes an expert automatically. They're going on television, they're going on CNN, they're going on China Central, all the other, Al Jazeera, all these different, news-like organizations. They're spending their time on there talking about it because that's the current discussion that people want to have.
So true. And I'll throw in a couple points there. I couldn't have said it better myself, first of all. So like, just unbelievable. You get right there, you're over 100 props right there. 101. Got to really push it. Triple digits, guys. Come on. Got to bring it. So absolutely, you're so right absolutely on brand with that. A couple things that I'll throw out there too. You'll notice that the two guys on camera here, we know how to do lighting. We're polished. You can hear every single syllable that we say. Now, you know how some people have a swear jar, and you have the Gary V's and they like to curse all over the place. I don't really go for that. I mean, maybe a little bit in the office. My wife doesn't like it. But for live broadcast, I'm not going to drop the F-bomb. I might say crap. I'm not going to say F this or S that. It's ridiculous. So what I'm getting at is both guys here, stand up a second, right? Like, we're wearing suits, guys. Yeah. Everybody else that does blab is like rookie league sometimes. They're sitting there in their gym shorts, and it's like, what am I looking at? It's awful to look at. So you should, if you're going to sell yourself, and selling is bad, selling is wrong, I know. But if you can't sell some level of professional image, who wants to see you on CNN in your sweatpants or whatever? It doesn't exist. And maybe if you're doing like a yoga segment or something and you actually are supposed to be in yoga pants, but otherwise dress the part. Go look at TV. Who's sitting there in their jammies? It doesn't work. And be polished. Take a Toastmasters class, whatever it is. You'll notice that, watch the two of us, and I don't mean to curse this broadcast or anything, but you could probably count the number of ums and uhs on one hand. So instead of having a swear jar, have an jar, because it's terrible. It means that you don't know how to talk to people. And I mean this from a place of love, everybody. I'm not trying to pick on you, but you know it, right? I mean, I've been doing every single day of the work week, I've been doing a Facebook Live broadcast. And again, no ums, no uhs. And the people that I'm visiting while I'm talking about it, Nobody wants to get on the video because people are so self-conscious of their own image, how they're perceived. And it's difficult, right? It's hard to put yourself on the line. And this stuff is being recorded and people could tear you apart and you're going to have all sorts of trolls. But I don't care, right? Mm-hmm. Once you get good enough, you can see through that and you can say, I'm actually pretty good at this. And that's hard to say. It's really difficult to say I'm hard at this because I'm sure, like you're your own worst critic when you're an entrepreneur, yes. When you're in the media, 100%. When you're going to be on video. Video's hard. So many people hide behind the camera, right? They want to be the person in the shadows. I've had now sourcing this past August makes 10 years. And something just snapped in my brain. Once we hit 10, I said, you know what? No more of this shadows stuff anymore. Other S word. No more of this shadows stuff anymore. We're going to be more of a media entity. That's why we're doing this show every week. That's why we do the daily broadcast. And we have fun with it. And you know what? People find it more interesting. Anybody can write words. Anybody can send out 140 characters. To talk long form in front of a camera for an hour is much harder. And this isn't coming from a script. Ebong and I talked about this ahead of time. And I said, hey, do you want interview questions? You want me to lob you some soft things? He's like, what are you talking about? Like, I do this every day. Like, I could do this in my sleep. So what you guys may not realize is we do this in our sleep. We play these things through our mind. I guarantee you, Ebong will be on me with this too, all the time. And yes, Mohammed, I do a daily broadcast. I don't do it on Blab because nobody wants to hear me an hour a day. I'll do, for those of you who have not seen Facebook Live is a new thing that is not rolled out to everybody. And I just thought, hey, this is a great way to really promote the brand. Everybody's been all over it. People I haven't talked to in 20 years are like, wow, I didn't know you do that. Your office is cool, this and that. And it's garnering so much attention. So my point with this, and I'll turn it back over to you, is anybody can be a brand. The decentralization of media, where it used to be this pyramid, right? Where at the top you had big brands and lots of money and corporations and influence and agencies, and everybody used to bow down to this model, and you had to pay for the play and you had to do all these things. And then social came along and disrupted the heck out of that sucker. And so many people started blogging and microblogging and all this video stuff we're doing. Everybody can do it. And 90% of them are terrible at it. So like we can give you the steps, right? So the internet can make you understand like how to 101 level. The one thing that you're never going to get from the internet completely is proficiency. You can listen to the experts. You can read the blog posts. You can retweet Mashable. We love Mashable. That's not a knock, but you can retweet whoever. And it doesn't matter, right? You have to actually be a practitioner. You have to get more and more polished. The reason that the two of us are good at this is because we talk to people all the time. I'm forcing myself to talk to people every day. So what does that mean? That means I'm literally on stage every day of the week. So if I want to go in front of a stage of 1,000 people, it's nothing. So back to you. What do you think?
No, that's exactly right. I mean, because I spoke yesterday with the basketball team.
Yeah.
And actually my good friend who's a coach, he said, hey, just share a few words with the team. And I literally had nothing prepared. Right. I just literally went up there and I lived it because I do this every single day. I do a Periscope every single morning at about 8:30 to 9:30 Eastern Standard Time, nice. Give or take, like within that period, maybe about 10 o'clock within that period, to talk about motivation, small business, media attention. It runs a gamut of what people need to know about when they're going on with their business in their daily lives. A lot of it tends to be motivation in the nutshell. But with that being said, it was easier for me to go up there and speak live in front of 20 different kids, mainly because I've been doing it for the last 12 months in general. And I think, like what you said earlier, what's really important, I think needs to resonate with a lot of people who are listening. There are people right now who have yet to do a Blab. There are people right now who have yet to do a Periscope. That is one of the ways to differentiate yourself, becoming an early adopter to some of the new technologies that are out there. There's no excuse for people not doing that. It's very simple. I'm on a MacBook. The lights that I have are literally from Amazon. I pay $50 for them, and it's not even. I don't even have the umbrella kit. I just have the light bulbs sticking out, and I'm able to differentiate the lights and everything. So right. I think that it's imperative that people can just take a little bit of time to test everything out. I'm a huge fan of experimentation. If you experiment, you can figure out what exactly works well for you. I have a Yeti mic. I have a screen for my mic, and other than that, I just practice every time talking. I practice every day talking and sharing my message with different people. And so that's something that you can use as a small business owner, as an entrepreneur, as a brand to differentiate yourself from the average person, from the next person. How many people are doing what Brian's doing? And I don't think there are a lot of people who are doing the exact same thing. They're still afraid to use Facebook Live, or still afraid to use video. I even use video. I put video on Facebook in addition to access to Facebook Live, which I haven't done yet because I have an Android. When I am getting an iPhone at some point, well, I don't know if I'm going to do that, but if I get an iPhone at some point, or if they get the Android app, then I'll eventually go into that. But I just want to remind everybody who's here, you have the ability right now to do some of the very simple, the little things that you need in order to differentiate yourself from your potential competitors and to show yourself a lot bigger in the marketplace.
Very true. Let's take a quick question from the audience. Mohammed brings up a good point. For those of you who don't see that on the sidebar, Mohammed asked the question, do you guys feel the everyday message is a good marketing strategy? Do you see that it gets you more followers that way? So it's a two-part question, and I think it's imperative that we answer this fully. So let's take the first part of it. Do you feel that an everyday message is a good marketing strategy? I would say if you can talk every day about something new, unscripted, that you don't have to rehearse or read like, some teleprompter garbage. If you've got it running in your mind and you're creative enough and you've got enough stuff to say, absolutely, do it every day. Do it more than once a day. That's a little much. Do it every day. And I mean, ask Ebong, right? I mean, how many days in a row did you see me like every single video? He addresses his audience as dear Facebook fam, and he's on point and on brand, and he's got something good to say every day. He doesn't have to go into a recording studio. He does it from his car, or wherever the heck he is. It doesn't even matter. And nobody cares, right? That's the other piece of that. Before I get to the second part of the question, it doesn't have to be perfect, guys. Just because I'm saying, like, don't sit in your sweatpants. If you happen to have sweatpants on, you got something great to say, blaze it out right now. Get it out there before you lose the thought. It just flutters away. Just be provocative. If you saw what I did a couple of days ago, I was in my neighborhood of where I grew up. I went in front of my childhood elementary school to talk about remembering the first time you were creative. And you know how many people reached out to me, people I hadn't heard from in years, loved it, and everybody's thinking about it. I'm going to wrap that into a whole blog post that you can check out later. But this is a marketing message on that. So, I mean, just if it hits you in the moment, just go for it. It doesn't have to be perfect. Perfect's the enemy of the good. Analysis or paralysis through analysis, all that stuff's garbage. It's total crap. Now, let's talk about the other part of it. Do you see that it gets you more followers that way? I don't care. I'm going to talk. If 20 people think that it's offensive what I say today, I'm not offensive. I'm pretty easy to get along with. But the thing is, you're going to build a brand of exactly the kind of people that find you interesting. So there's volume, which is sometimes very noisy, and there's quality. I'll take 10 diehard fans over 1,000 followers that are robots any day of the week. And I think anybody would agree with me. And a lot of those numbers are fake anyway. People pay for nonsense. That stuff's junk. And a lot of the people that have the really big followings, they're the goods, guys. They know what they're talking about. They've spent a long time doing it. And that's what I've got to say about it. Ebong, how would you answer that question?
I completely agree. The daily stuff is good for a multitude of reasons. Is because, the first reason is you create a level of a standard of who you are, so that the person who's watching gets to know you. And for the most part, if you have to have multiple touch points in order for someone to do business with you at some point. It's not enough to come on there and say, hey, this is what I do, buy my stuff. They're not gonna do that, right? They need to hear more about you. They need to know about you, who you are, what do you stand for, what message are you sharing, and is your message congruent over a longer period of time? Now, by congruency, that could be a week, it could be a month, it could be whatever. But at some point in time, you have to bring enough value, and the only way you can do that is to bring value on several occasions, where there's several touch points, so people can actually interact with you and learn about what you know and what you have to share with them. And so, a lot of people always say, "What's the difference between advertising and marketing?" And advertising is it's a company centric thing. Like, I'm telling you about what I do, and you better pay attention. While marketing is about educating and sharing knowledge. And what I try to do is I think it's very important. I think it's actually imperative that I bring enough value and information so that after you've heard from me, you've listened to me, you've worked with me, listened to me, whatever I've done, watch me, you have enough of information, enough stuff for you to go out and do something different. Because I know that if I can give away some of my amazing stuff, when it comes time for you to pay me, the value is going to be exponential above that. Just imagine what, the kind of things you're going to receive from me that you have to actually pay for. And so I believe getting followers is great. I think too many people focus too much on getting followers. I think, as you mentioned, Brian, earlier, I'd rather have 10 people follow me who engage with me and who actually buy my stuff or come to my webinars or what have you, or hire, or end up hiring me. I'd rather have that than to have a situation where I have 1,000 people listening and then don't do anything. And so that's the problem you have with people who do a lot of viral videos. Things are just for virality, and they want the numbers, but the numbers don't necessarily translate into dollars. And so if you see somebody on Twitter who has maybe 100,000 followers, but then you look at their news feed or their Twitter feed, and there's literally no engagement. One favorite, one retweet, one like here and there. And there are people who have way less, like 1,000. But every time you see their posts or their tweets, it's like 100 here, 20 here, 20 there. And that's what I want. I want people to be engaged, people to know who I am and actually interact with me.
Absolutely. So true. There's so much noise out there, guys. So much of this stuff can be faked. That's another reason why I like video. There is so many things like facial expressions, tone of voice, micro expressions. People are alive on video. This is so much closer to the actual human experience. I love Twitter. I love Facebook. I love all these things. But technology are tools. They're amplification tools. They're assistants, but they do not replace the human mind, the human spirit, voice, projection, physical presence. You can't beat that. I would love nothing better if we were actually just in the same room together and we were all there together, all 50 of us that are watching this, which is great, Thanks for all you tuning in. But I guarantee you would like it better. You would take more away from it. It would penetrate a part of your mind that's better. And I've actually, on a college level, educated people about virtual teams and all this kind of communication. It's just not as good. I'm glad that the world is speeding up. I'm glad that we're interconnected, but it's just a little bit different. It never is going to work exactly like that. I know we're trying to get into fancy holograms and little robots on wheels where the guy doesn't have to be in the store and all these wonderful things. But sometimes I actually like talking to people. Maybe I'm old fashioned. Maybe we're just getting old, man. I don't know what it is, but I grew up with a childhood where I didn't have social media, where every little thing that I did was dissected and analyzed, and my friends are looking at this and cyberbully that. A big piece of my formative years were pre-internet, and that doesn't bother me a lot. But as future generations go about, that's lost, right? Do you remember when you would call somebody and they didn't have a cell phone? Do you remember when they finally had an answering machine? And how did you meet each other? You still got together, you still could make plans, and you'd actually go to each other's houses, or you'd go to the mall. Those things don't really exist anymore either. Listen, this isn't like the old-timey show where we're going to get in our horseless carriages. We obviously like technology. We're not crapping on technology. Technology is a wonderful enabler to get media. So let me just steer it on back to that for a second. So we love technology. It's wonderful. It's changing the world. I'll still say software, as they may say on the West Coast, software is not eating the world. People are still the thing. It's a wonderful piece to get us into a larger kind of media. And I think you'd agree, man. I think that if it didn't exist like that, we wouldn't be, well, first off, I don't think we never would have even met, right? We met through technology. We met through all this media hoopla. So tell us a little bit. I think it would be interesting to kind of talk about maybe how you got started and how, I think people always identify with the speaker when they can say, oh, you know what, I could do that. If I just kind of give it a little bit of effort and I really stick to it. Look at these guys. They seem to know what they're doing. And other guys got all these books in the background. And it looks like a picture of them on it. And he didn't just like do it at FedEx in 5 minutes. These are actual books, guys. He's actually written a lot of stuff. So we're really happy to have him on the show with all his busy schedule. So could you kind of lead us through, you don't have to tell us all the super secret tricks and stuff, but how did you get started? Like, how did you know that this was going to be your thing?
Well, that's a very good question. To start out, I ended up doing a lot of television earlier, like about 5-6 years ago. So my first hit was on Fox News. I did a show called Follow the Money, and it was through a relationship. I had a friend. I still have this friend who's a political commentator at Fox News, and she introduced me to the booker. Mm-hmm. And she said, you know what, I think this guy would be great for one of your new shows. And it's called Follow the Money. It was relatively new. I ended up doing a hit there talking about politics and Chavez and some other stuff. And what ended up happening after that was CNN saw that hit and then reached out to me because of the way I delivered it. I ended up doing HLN, Mike Galanos's TV show to talk about Black Friday. And after that happened, MSNBC saw my CNN hit, and I ended up doing MSNBC on a regular basis for Chris Jansing and Company. It's called Chris Jansing, but the show was called Jansing and Company. The majority of the hits I did were live, and so I was forced to actually understand how that process worked, because there were times I'd sit in a seat, I'd have an earpiece talking to somebody from New York, and they'd be switching the story, or they would switch the story, or to switch what we're going to talk about 10 seconds into going live. And so I had to get ready to be able to be light on my feet and be able to be nimble that way. And so I back to what I said about competency, I had to go back and focus on being competent and being not only competent, but confident in what I was saying and what I was sharing. But then I also realized something like this. I asked myself a simple question. Why are there a lot of people, or a certain number of people, on multiple shows on a regular basis? There was a pattern started to develop. And so I took the time to dissect and reverse engineer that pattern. But one of the things I noticed was this. I mentioned earlier, when you want to get noticed, you have to either be contrarian or align yourself with current events. Those one of the two things. The second thing I also noticed was, if you make the job of the person you're working with a lot easier, it increases the chances of them reaching out to you again and having you on. And so my goal was to figure out a system to make all the producers, to make the whoever was responsible for producing the show and booking the guests, to make their job and their life a lot easier. So when they worked with me, they knew when they called me, I was going to produce, I was going to deliver, I was even going to produce and write the segment for you, or make it easier so that you can just take it and plug it into whatever your existing situation was. And that's kind of one of the things I started learning. And so from then, everything else started snowballing. How I reached out to media producers, how I reached out to television blogs, and then people started reaching out to me. And one tip I want to share with everybody who's watching is, a lot of times producers will do a Google search for certain ideas based on what's going on. And so they'll do a Google search to see what's going on and what's going on in the news, based on what they're looking for, based on what's happening in current events. And usually one of the first, second, third, or fourth blogs that pop up of an individual, their site looks clean, looks nice. There's information leading that's actually coming from that news area that they're interested in. They end up reaching out to you a lot of times, and that's one of the ways that you can end up getting in touch with somebody from different media sources to get on and share your message.
So true. And you'll notice this is not Ebong's first rodeo. I could ask him, it just seems like the kind of guy, I'm sure you guys would agree, I could ask him basically any question. He wouldn't wait a second. He wouldn't break a sweat. He is a cool character, and he's got this down. He wasn't expecting that question. And, you looked for a second like, wow, nobody's really asked me that for a really long time, because I usually have like this set bite where people are asking about like, making money and accounting and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd throw you a little harder one that was probably different from, I love interviewing people. So like long before infographics and all that, we were actually social. And one of my things for the longest time was interviews, but blog interviews. And I think that was something, just even being the interviewer side, I think is a piece that people don't realize. You can attain all sorts of attention and fame just by hustling your way into an interview. Being the interviewer. It's insane, right? How does that even make sense? I'm going to be famous by interviewing a famous person and riding their ladder in a sense? Yeah, actually, that's exactly what I'm saying. So if you don't want to be on video, you can do stuff like that. I'm not going to say blogs are dead, but I think that we've reached a point in time where the technology has caught up. So we couldn't be doing Blab 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. Smartphones weren't where they are. Broadband access wasn't where it was. Like, how would you even stream this? How would the internet have the capacity? How would the company have the money to do it? So everything keeps getting better. And every year that gets better, the closer we get to that human touch. So pretty soon we're not going to have stupid computers and laptops and, smartphones and tablets and this thing and that thing and just pockets and pockets full of junk. We're going to have singular devices, and it's going to be hooked into our head, and that's kind of scary. We don't need to go there. But we're getting closer to things being even better is what I'm saying. Right now, even though like we're doing this is still like the dark ages, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, do you use a computer? that has basically a typewriter that's been around since how long, right? It's kind of ridiculous that we're still using the same stuff. Anyways, so future tech aside, so that's really interesting first break. So important thought there, everybody, is you never know who you know, right? Sounds like a little bit of a Yogi Berra-ism, doesn't it? But it's true. Everybody in your network is a world of connections. So when social was coming out and I would give seminars about how to use Twitter in like 2006 and 2007, and I'd get laughed out of boardrooms, but they'd all call me back 2 years later because they said, oh, wow, look at that. I guess he did know what he was talking about. So I've been evangelizing all this stuff for so long. And that's the biggest thing. I don't even care what network it is. The reality is if there's usage and there's adoption, get on it. If you suck at it, find a better one that's more comfortable for you. You don't like video? Good. Go tweet. Go write a blog post. Go take pictures. Do whatever it is that is comfortable to you. You can't push yourself overboard. It takes a little while to get good at it. But just start using that platform like a beast and network with people, and you would be surprised. You know, your old college buddy could be the head of some company, right? Talk to people, update your LinkedIn profile. I don't know what you think about LinkedIn, but I think it's a wonderful piece.
No, I still think LinkedIn is good. All these things, like people want to replace what we used to do in the past and what we're doing now, but it's not that. Like you mentioned earlier, it's an amplification of what we used to do. That's it. And so you have the ability to, like you said, to meet people, to reach out to people you otherwise would not be able to contact. There's no way we would have connected otherwise. I mean, actually, the likelihood of us connecting, if it not be for technology and the way we connected, would not have happened.
It would be insane, right?
There's no other reason for that.
Such a small percentage that we could even do it. We're not in the same city. We weren't following the same people, so we just found each other, and I'm glad we did, because now we get to share this moment. So one thing there's another thing I want to add to that too is I every time I give speeches about social, I talk about businesses, but in that I always mention social, the importance of social. And one of the things I always get some resistance from people who say, I don't want to get on Twitter, or I don't want to get on Snapchat or whatever it is because it's for kids, and they have this narrative, and I tell them they're like, I'm too busy running my business. And I say, you're too busy running your business into the ground otherwise. And here's the reason why that is. It behooves you to find the new technologies and the new things that are out there that you can actually learn from and leverage for your business. Social is one of the biggest equalizers. I can now compete with major brands who have millions of dollars because I've taken the time to learn how to use things like Blab and Twitter and Snapchat or whatever else so that I can actually provide content to people who actually want it. Like you mentioned before, when you guys would do infographics, and if one of the infographics you did was about businesses. I remember I think I featured this in the Huffington Post. Yep. One of the ones that was about businesses, how the reasons why businesses go out of business. And if I'm somebody who may be going out of business, or if I'm somebody who's in that particular space or sphere, if I'm a banker, I would want to look at that infographic, and automatically I'm drawn to it because it's appealing to whatever my audience mindset is at that particular point in time. And it's the same thing. You provided a level of content that was so valuable. You weren't just saying, here are 4 tips to do this. It was a very focused, very picturesque experience for somebody to see, and easy for them to absorb the information. And so there's so many people out there who dismiss social, dismiss platforms, dismiss opportunities to reach out and find your ideal client, ideal customer. I've partnered with brands because of my Twitter profile or my Twitter presence, as well as other parts of my social media that I otherwise would not have been able to do. So it just behooves you, if you want to take your business to another level, it's important for you because your competition's already doing it. And if you're not going to do it, you're going to get left behind. All day long. And everybody who isn't watching, you're clearly left behind. I'm just kidding. So, you can always watch the recording. It's fine. Then you won't be left behind. But it's so true. People neglect social channels. And the thing that always gets me, I'm sure you run into this a lot yourself, right, is I tried Twitter. And you're just like, you're waiting for the rest. And it's like, well, you tried Twitter and what? There's no end. Did you do it again? Did you do it the next hour? Oh, you haven't tweeted since 2013. That's interesting. Maybe somebody's going to like overtake your account. It's insane how little people try stuff. Oh, my favorite, on our line of business with infographics, I tried an infographic. It didn't work. It's like, yeah, but your thing is crap. Like there's no story. It's unfocused. It looks terrible. What are you talking about? That's the difference between what I like to call, trying to build a car. Like, who does that? Like, could you imagine just like building a car in your garage and you don't know what you're doing and you just like go to the junkyard and you throw a bunch of crap together, or like going to the Tesla dealership and, skyrocketing into the future, right?
Yeah.
There's no comparison, guys. You can't just kind of dip your toe into it. Go and own it, because you can. Everybody has things that they're good at. I don't care if you are the best person that makes quilts, or you know how to fly kites, or you know electrical engineering, or you're great at business and finance. Figure out the things that you're good at. Figure out something that's a marketable skill and get out there and do it. Blogging, all these things are a platform that, if you're just waiting for the big one and everything else is a waste of time, then you're not seeing it right. You can't run that by ego. You're not going to have your super keynote speech with thousands of people bowing down to you, because you haven't earned it yet. You need to play a little bit under the radar. People get good when people aren't watching them. And after a while, you kind of have to get out from under that, fine. But right now, if you're watching this and people aren't watching you all day, that's wonderful. You don't even know what kind of a gift that is. Because right now, the two of us here that are broadcasting, everybody's watching every little thing. And, if we made a controversial or weird move, people would write articles about it, and there would be media this and that, and it would be terrible. So in a way, it's almost uncomfortable once you get a certain level of attention. You can't say whatever the heck you want. You can't do whatever you want. Can't be off brand. I can't show up here with a bottle of scotch, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. People expect a certain thing once you kind of prime them into your brand. So right now, for those of you who are just kind of tuning in and maybe it's your first blab, do your first recording tomorrow and make it about anything. I don't care what it's about. Just do it. And, if you're terrible about it, I'm sorry. Don't do anything illegal. This is not a legal counsel. But aside from that, just do it. And that's the piece that people are lacking. They're waiting for, I don't mean to go in a circle here, but, you cannot wait for perfect. You have to do it now. Because as you said, Ebong, people are just waiting to take all your lunch money and give you a wedgie and, flush your head in the school.
But that's the thing, though. Yeah. The mistake people make is they believe that when they do it the first time, it's supposed to be perfect. That is crazy. That's like saying that the first time I paint a picture of somebody, it's supposed to look like a Monet or Pablo Picasso. There's no way in hell that's going to look like. He spent decades perfecting his craft. So people have to realize that that's what's exactly. So part of the process of you getting to a level of competency where you get the 10,000 hours, it requires you to put in the time. Everything in life, any type of change in life, any type of growth in life, growth by definition requires time. Growth doesn't happen instantaneously. It happens over a period of time, becoming a better person, a better speaker, a better business, whatever it is that you're doing. And you learn through your mistakes and failures and the mistakes of failures of others. And that's the only way you're going to get to a place of efficiency and proficiency. So if you are sitting there thinking, well, it's not going to be perfect the first time, if you don't do it, you will never be perfect. It will never matter. And so, even going back to what you said earlier about being cognizant of your brand and who you are, at some level, you can't start talking, out of your butt and talking crazy. You have to be very cognizant of what you say. And a perfect example is that woman from IAC who did that tweet like a couple of years ago, and she got on a plane and was flying to Africa. And she said something about, I hope I don't get AIDS.
Yes,
and then she ended up,
terrible.
while she was flying, it was terrible. But again, Twitter was still at the place. And she wasn't, nobody knew who she was. She had maybe 100 followers of her friends and people she didn't even know.
Yep.
Nobody knew who she was, but it was picked up by, virally. And the difference was she obviously back then there was no Wi-Fi on the plane. So she had no way of knowing that her whole life was going down to crapper while she was 30,000 feet in the air. And so even though you think you only have 100 or 200, followers, and it doesn't really matter what you say, people are always paying attention. And so they're paying attention for when you fail. They're also paying attention to when you do well. So you want to be consistent in what you're doing. That's why I'm very cautious about what I say, how I say it, and what I share. I'm always comfortable with what I share, regardless of whether people like it or not. I'm comfortable with what I say. So that's a level you want to get to as well. You don't want to think that you're anonymous once you start tweeting and posting things.
Yeah. And let me build on the point about likability. I'd like to think people like the way I talk, the sound of my voice. My wife says it's relaxing. I had a professor in college when I was in MBA school, and the guy literally said to me, he's like, you just have like this natural, like Michael Jordan smoothness. Look, I'm not 6'5". I'm not going to dunk, whatever. Not that side, but the smoothness in the art of conversation that people don't even care what you're talking about. It's just like anything you're going to say is going to sound great. And I said, yeah, you're right. I'm going to do all this marketing stuff. He didn't even give me an A, so I don't even understand what happened there. He said he gave me a strong B+. I still have yet to figure out what that means, but it meant that I have license to kind of just run my mouth and people find it interesting because it just sounds good. And you're like that too, man. But let's talk about likability. Not everybody likes me. Not everybody likes you. And what I would say about that is good. Who cares? You don't do everything. You don't do your moves to get everybody to like you. You don't answer to everybody. That's silly. That's really just not believing in yourself. And it's actually very egotistical. You're not the center of the universe. Let me build on that. Let's talk about likability. And you brought up Monet. So since we're talking about the 10,000 hour rule, and that's Malcolm Gladwell speaking, for those of you who don't read all those books. Malcolm Gladwell has a book from probably like a year or two ago. I don't know if you read it, Ebong, about the art of battling giants and David and Goliath. Did you read that one?
Yes. Yes.
Do you remember where I'm going with this? He mentions artists.
You go ahead and tell it. I can't remember it, but I do have it right here. I'm looking for it right now as you talk. So keep talking.
Okay, cool. Yeah, take a look, and you guys can get it. Once he finds it, you put it on camera, and everybody can take a look, and we can throw links in all this later. Hey, thanks for joining, Or. So the thing that's very interesting about Monet and Picasso and all those guys, they all grew up together and they were friends and everybody hated them. Wow. The way art in society worked in France at the time was that everybody had to make art that all was under very specific kinds of... There it is. Yep, that's the one. I don't remember what page it's on, but I remember enough about what it says. But there was this whole high society where everything had to be nature scenes or these perfect little pictures of people. And there was no impressionistic paint. There was no impressionistic kind of painting that was respected. That was garbage. That was just like just street art junk. And they couldn't even make it into these high society things. And everybody, if they didn't make it, they wanted to just kill themselves. And a lot of people did. And these guys said, you know what? I would rather... They took a stand. And here's what they said. They'd say they would rather be the big fish in the small pond instead of getting just eaten alive by everybody in that huge, huge ocean that nobody will notice you. And they never will. And just following footsteps in somebody's crappy shadow, that's like us making stupid crap infographics all day. No, we're leading the way because it's good. Everybody doesn't like what I do, and that's great. And they can hire whoever they want and make it themselves and do it yourself tools. We don't need to name names. But the point of the matter is, if you want something to be good, sometimes you have to break through these boundaries, and you don't just play along the rules like what Steve Jobs said. If you've ever watched the Jobs movie, all this stuff that's around us, was just made by other people. And sometimes you kind of have to just bash through some of these walls and make your own rules and just try to do things. And like he would say, put a dent in the universe. I'm not like Apple fanboy here, whatever, but he definitely had some good points with that. So those guys had to risk everything and everybody hated them. And then they noticed, wow, you know what? We have a following. They had their 10 followers, right? They had their
I just lost you. You still there?
You see me? There we go.
There you are. Yay.
Yeah. So apparently I was saying too many good things that Blab is saying, hey, buddy, easy with that. And thanks for joining. Or glad you think I'm speaking wisdom. I like to think I have some intelligent things to say. I mean, I've been running a successful business for 10 and a half years, and I had all sorts of tech experience for about 8 or so years before that. And I worked in corporate, and I worked with all sorts of kinds of companies, telling them all the things that they're doing wrong. I'm not paid to be anybody's yes man, which is why people like to hear me talk, I think. So yeah, drop any kind of knowledge in there. Thanks for joining, Eric, also. So are we still coming in okay? It looks like we're cutting in and out there for a second. Okay, good.
Yeah, you were for a minute, but you're back. You're good.
Beautiful. So Yeah, it's just so important to get that message out there. And it's not about followers. It's not about how big the venue is. Don't worry about your first big break. Worry about your first little break. And you know what? Before you even have your little break, get good. Like actually do it well and launch it and put it out there and stop almost launching that blog post. Put the tweet out there. Later on in the chat, I will find you. I really can't stand advertising because I think it's just so self-serving and terribly done a lot of the time. But every now and then there's stuff that's great. And there's this wonderful video that was done by like a clothing company years ago. And it's just all this facing your fears stuff. I don't have it up right in front of me right now. And I'm going to build some of the suspense, get you all to watch this later. But you got to see this. It's so wonderful because I think it isn't just about getting good and about it being perfect or ego, but it's fear. Right? Everybody is afraid to do this stuff. And that's why we're here and other people aren't. I'm not saying we're the be all end all and all of that. Or as a songwriter, let's see what's going on. You're a singer and a songwriter. You recently released your album and you want to know how to get it noticed. That's a tough one. So I don't know what kind of genre you're doing. Music is incredibly competitive and so many people just die starving artists, hence the term. So yeah. I'm not trying to say you're starving artist or anything like that, but yeah, I'd be curious to see why you're stuck, how you're stuck, what you've already done. If you're not killing yourself 24/7 trying to get the message out there, you might be doing something wrong there. Uplifting and spiritual music, that's awesome. It's not pop culture music that everybody's going to want. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that uplifting and spiritual music has a very limited audience, and there's probably only so many people that will buy it and that will be good. So if you want more people to like your music, do something that's more popular. I don't know. That's one angle. I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I do not like to be prescriptive like that, but you've got to do everything. It is pop music. Okay, well, give us a link and we could check it out, and then you'll have 2 more fans. That'll start.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome. One thing I would add to that too is that Marvetta, is to find out who your audience is. Like I always tell people this in general, regardless of what you sell, regardless of what you do, most people don't even know who their true audience is or who their ideal person who their ideal client, ideal customer. And I'm not saying you can't say everybody, you can't say women, men. You have to literally try and be specific. And the reason why I do that is twofold. The first is it gets your brain thinking a little bit differently as to how to get to that person. If your brain has an end game, this is like some psychological games I play with myself, but if you have an end game, if you can see the finish line, that finish line looks like a woman who's 45 years old and you can actually identify everything about her, you have a better chance of finding more people who look like that than you do just saying everybody or a subsegment of society. And so there's so many things you could possibly do. You have to be very creative in what you do. Maybe you can start doing Snapchat and doing behind the scenes as you record stuff. Maybe you can start finding out where audiences, like-minded audiences go and start marketing to them through Facebook or marketing to them through other channels. So how they get their video through SoundCloud or whatever else it is. Like it can't be, like Brian said, music is music is difficult because the thing that I spend my time doing is working with people who have value, who can bring value to solving problems. And the reason why I do that is because it increases the likelihood of somebody giving you money for it. Things like art and music and other things in that, other areas in that focus, they're a little arbitrary because you don't really know. I don't know why Justin Bieber is famous and there's some other person who's not. Like I personally can't tell you that. I can't tell you the second place person on American Idol versus the first place person and why one does really well and one loses. Like I can't tell you that. And most people can't. And so I think that's part of the struggle with becoming, growing your music biz.
Right. Absolutely. And great point. Let me add a couple quick things to that. So the X factor of being number 2 to number 1, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about getting started, guys. So there's always going to be that little bit of competitive advantage. We're not talking about gold, silver, and bronze here. We're talking about getting in the game. We're talking about how to shape that brand. And then you just have to be better than everybody else. Not everybody's meant to be better than everybody else at something. You got to just accept sometimes, like, I'm not going to be the best at blogging. I'm not going to be the best at Blab. we're going to try to be the best at Blab, I guess. I mean, look at all these props we got going, killing it. I don't know if that's probably a better success metric than followers, I'll say. A couple other things that I'll throw in here, Veta. One, there's a site called Stage It, which is really interesting. People can pay to be on to see your live broadcast. So once you have a following, you can actually make some coin and continue to do that. So a colleague of ours, it's got a good thing going with his album that seems to work really well for him. And I was just watching him clean up money while he was doing it. It was kind of amazing. And we'll check out all your links after. Stageit.com. So here, I'll drop that link in there. The other thing that I'll say, and Ebong, you already talked about this a little bit, I'll say it a little bit differently, kind of with my flavor, is people want to know what happens in between the updates, in between the blog posts. So I just flew from the Midwest to New York on Sunday night. I got in at 11 o'clock or something stupid like that. And it's freezing. It's the dead of winter. It's New York, where everybody's got a bad attitude. Everybody's grumpy at 11 o'clock at night. Do you know how many people were on talking to me on a Sunday night at like midnight? It was crazy. And everybody I talked to today, they're like, oh yeah, I saw you hanging out at Newark Airport. I'm like, why is this even interesting? You want to watch me walking around baggage claim? Because people want to get a sense of who you are, what you represent, and you can't fake it. You can't hide it. It's not polished. It's not run by your PR. And it looks like I'm fading in and out here again. But can you hear me? So the point of it. Okay, cool. So the point of it is, guys, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be polished. Blab internet's going to go up and down, and who cares, right? Your true self, or whatever you're trying to position, is going to ring through. It's not going to ring hollow on your audience. And that's so important. You can't get a press agent to do that for you. This is your flavor. And a lot of times, CEOs and stuff like that, they want to kind of hide behind the curtain. I've had my fair share of hiding behind the curtain. And I just got to a point where I watched too many people that weren't good at anything. And I said, they're not good at this. let's talk. Let's chat. Let's document a bunch of stuff. And I don't mean like Truman Show level craziness where you're watching me sleep. That gets creepy. I don't want anybody watching me sleep.
Like Justice TV.
Yeah. I don't go all out for all that. And, I like to keep like a kind of a personal family life. And I don't think, everybody has to see like everything with that. But like for my brand, for my business, what I have to say about entrepreneurship is worth your time, is worth money, is worth, people pay consulting dollars to hear all these things. And like Ebong said, you have to give some of this stuff up for free, because I don't know about you, man, but I think there's two schools of thought out there in the world. One is scarcity mentality, which is just basically being a big chicken, and you think you need to kind of grab more and more of it, and you have to get fistfuls of money. And that's an awful, terrible, scared, nervous way to live. Or there's abundance mentality, right? Where there's plenty of it for everybody. And the people who are doing the best are going to win more, maybe, but so what, right? That is the setup. That's the mindset that I want you all to think about. If we're brainwashing you at all in this video at all, just remember that, you really need to have that as some level of mindset. Yeah. You need to be in a place that you're giving out there to the world more than you're just putting out there.
Yeah, I completely agree. You have to believe. I believe in the same thing as abundance, and I think when you believe in an abundant mentality, you tend to be you're focused on giving value, and because you're focused on giving value, you get rewarded for it. The universe, the people, your marketplace, you get rewarded in a multitude of ways. And the people who try to hoard their information, hoard their gifts, hoard their legacy, hoard what they're doing, and they're literally cowering, saying, "My competition will get me. My competition." And they're thinking from that perspective, they tend to attract that kind of negative behavior and negative personality. And for me, I'm all about, I believe in abundance so strongly that even on my Periscopes, people who do the exact same things that I do, I'll promote them just because I'm not concerned. The person who wants to work with me will want to work with me, and it won't be a discussion of whether or not there are other people like me around. They're going to know they want to work with me. And so I'm not concerned with that. I'm not thinking, oh, I might lose them to somebody else. They want to work with me directly. So that's kind of why I'm not even concerned. I have no problem sharing, the message with others.
It's so true. And are you hearing a little bit of echo? I'm hearing myself
I am a little bit, but not as much. I'm trying to think what that is.
Okay. Not sure what is going on exactly. I think it's because I have this on the other computer too. Here, let me. Okay, how about now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, great. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, very popular speaker, keynote speaker guy. He's got a big agency now. He started a lot of the wine and YouTube movement. I'm sure you have some books there, probably Crush It or Jab, 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 Left Hook, I'm guessing. Yep, there you go. Look at that. That was not planned, guys. I'm not a mind reader. I just kind of figured that would be on the shelf. So it's so interesting, the kind of content that he's rolling out lately. Yeah, thank you, Economy. Good book, good book. He's said stuff lately that's almost ridiculous. He actually has been saying he wants to put himself out of business. Does he literally mean that? I don't think so. But what he's saying is that he's so good at this and of entrepreneurship and stuff. Guys like all of us, we could give you a recipe. We could give you a manual. So like, let's say we gave you like our spaghetti sauce recipe. You could follow it to the letter and your spaghetti sauce would be crap and ours would be good. Because we add little pepper and spice and we taste it and we season to taste and we're making the stuff up on the fly. So I could tell you exactly how I do everything with infographics and I'm still going to be better because I care and I spend so much time at it and I have natural talents. So that's the difference between getting a little bit of media attention and getting a lot, because once you can combine that voice and amplification with really polishing it and years of experience, then you're just unstoppable. So everybody who cries all day about what about the competition? They're going to see this and that. Who cares? What do you see me going like this, looking behind me in this interview? No, I'm looking at you. You want to look at the back of my head? I don't want to look over there because I'm going to go off the road, right? That's ridiculous.
That's so true.
You should be busy. Yeah, you're competing against yourselves, guys.
Exactly. And Gary, and one of the things to add to what Gary says, I completely agree. And one of the reasons is because I think he said this before, where he doesn't believe, where Gary doesn't necessarily, but he believes that he has so much experience, but no one else will outwork him out there. So he's not concerned. He can tell you everything that he does, which he already has. Majority of things that he shares for free literally you can use them to actually grow your social platform, your social following. But the difference is there are a lot of people who aren't as committed. And so Gary's working till midnight, 2 a.m. I'm not saying you have to do the same thing, but there's two parts of it. There's giving you the recipe, like you said, and actually putting in the work to commit to find out exactly how to get to that level. But most people aren't willing to do that. They want the ab belt on the infomercial. They want the magic pill, right? They're not going to track their meals and eat certain ways and do all the things that they think that they know they need to do. They want the magic pill. And so because they want the magic pill, he's not really concerned with people. And I've heard him say the same thing too, like in a few of his speeches for the same reason.
Absolutely. And let's pick another celebrity person, somebody that I like to hear what he has to say. Interesting. It's not like in the internet space, but as an actor. You may have seen this, Ebong. Will Smith. Have you ever seen what he says in interviews about the treadmill line? Have you ever heard this line?
Yes.
I love this line, guys. For those of you who haven't heard this, don't know what we're talking about, his level of perfecting the craft, not being perfect, but shipping the art and really getting in character and learning everything about who he's trying to play in any number of different roles. You could name any number of TV movies that he's been in. Just phenomenal actor and wonderful person. One of the things that he says about persistence is incredible. He says he akins his experience to being on the treadmill. Mm-hmm. And he says that in terms of competition, him and the next guy on the treadmill, he's going to win because he's willing to die on the treadmill. That's a little bit extreme, but wow, what an incredible point, right? You might think, oh, Will Smith, come on, he's been in all these movies, he's loaded, blah, 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 he doesn't have to work that hard. That guy works so hard, it's ridiculous. Have you ever seen Pursuit of Happiness?
Yes,
incredible
I have.
Movie for those of you who haven't seen it. So, it's the movie, what's the guy's name? Chris Anderson. So he was like on the street and he was single parenting and he took this unpaid internship on Wall Street and finally he made it big. Spoiler alert, deal with it, guys. It's like 15 years old. But the thing is that was so interesting. I think it was Chris Anderson. So he actually met the real guy.
Yes.
And he went into the bathroom of this subway station where the guy had to like live for days because he had no money for rent with his, you know, his small child. And Will Smith went in to that bathroom and he locked himself in there for like 5-10 minutes. And he said he came out and he was a different person. I'm not just talking about getting into character.
Yeah.
This guy was so obsessed with his art that he like probably developed psychological problems. I mean, it's crazy the level of dedication that guy puts into it. So it's not good enough to be good and smart. You have to be so dedicated and just do things that are basically ridiculous like that. If you really want to just completely kill it and just own it and crush it and whatever other motivational type speak that you want to enter there. So there's getting pretty good. There's getting your starter press, and then there's just absolutely running away with it.
Yeah, and the major thing is when it comes to getting noticed in press, and even like you said, the commitment that Will Smith had, the main thing is he's able to. There's a system. Life is made up of systems. Everything in life has a system to it. And so I always tell people when it comes to getting, as an example, for getting noticed or even starting your business with according to my book, the key is this: you have to be able to find the patterns in life so that you can mirror them. You can find out the patterns that lead to bad stuff and the ones that lead to good. And so when it comes to getting noticed and getting media attention, I watch television now as if I'm in class. I don't watch television for pleasure. I watch television to consume something, to consume information that I can use for my life or for my business and to enrich myself. So when I see somebody on television, when I'm seeing somebody being interviewed, I'm watching what they're doing, what they're saying. I'm watching how they lead into them. I'm watching how the announcer will introduce them and what they say as well. So here's another quick tip. If you're looking to get on a particular channel, a particular network, and this is something I actually teach as well, but if you're looking to get on a particular network, you want to watch and see how that particular segment is created, how it's made, how long it is, what they say to them. It tends to be the same. You have to have repetition. It makes it easier to produce a show or anything that you're doing if you have a system of repetition from a media or a television perspective. So you're not going to have all this ad hoc stuff. Everything's going to be, for the most part, it's going to be consistently created beforehand. So you want to pay attention to how all that's being done. If you do that, you have a better chance of creating content that easily can be plugged into a particular or existing TV show or existing segment. That's something that people need to think about. People don't think like that. They think it's always different, but it's not.
So true. I can't even match any of that. It's so on point, and it sounds like I think we have like a good kind of wavelength, and I think we think alike on a lot of these points. And yeah, you know, just sitting there passively watching the news and watching broadcasts, you're kind of missing out. You need to study the craft of what all these guys are doing and take the good things and throw out the rest of the stuff that's crap. Now, I know we're getting a little close to 9:00 p.m. on the East Coast here. I know we were thinking, oh yeah, we'll go half an hour, we'll go an hour. But I always get everybody. I told you, interviewing is kind of my thing, and people love jumping in it. So I'm sure, you're a busy man. I'm actually in the middle of a business trip out here in New York at the moment. But hey, before we go, if there's any, key succinct points that you want to leave, and maybe we can also, if you have a few minutes, open it up to some questions. Okay.
Yeah, I'd love to do.
Great.
So the first thing I would say is you want to, I mentioned earlier, you want to either align what you do to the current narrative. The other way to be contrarian. That's a little bit more difficult for people if you're not used to doing that. So what I tell people to first focus on is whatever you're doing in your business, whatever your major thing in business is, align that with what's currently going on in the news. So I spend every Sunday, I'll read the paper. I'll read multiple papers from different areas, different parts of the country to get an idea of what's going on, what's out there, that I can actually easily align my platform and what I do with the particular story that's coming. Because the newspapers and the news online is literally a microcosm of what's going to be talked about this week, unless something big happens. So that's the main thing. The second thing is I would try and figure out how to create your message very succinctly in about maybe anywhere from 1 to 3 sentences. So every time you're asked, what do you do, who are you, what do you serve? Basically, that's the way I would present it. It's what do you do, or actually, who are you, what do you do, and who do you serve? And those are the 3 areas I would focus on. If you do that, you answer a lot of the questions. You talk about solving problems. This is who I am. This is a problem I solve, and this is why I solve it. Or these are the people who need to have this solution. If you come from that perspective, your media person, the media producer, whoever it is, can think our audience would actually like to hear that, or our audience would like to see that, or whatever it is. And so that's one of the other things I would leave behind too. Also, I would say focus intently on every week do this, even if you get on TV or not, or radio, or whatever you're doing. Continue practicing. That's what Brian alluded to earlier today, is practice, whether it's on Blab or Periscope, or even if you shoot video by yourself, practice your pitch so that in the event, because there are a lot of WT, about 2 weeks ago, I did WTOP hit. They called me at 10 o'clock in the morning and said, can we talk at 10:30 to talk about the lottery? Actually, it was last week. Sorry, it was last week. And,
right.
and WTOP is a national radio network. Like they literally span, they're the largest radio network across the country. And I had about a minute and a half hit on there. They called me last minute. Let's talk in 30 minutes about the lottery and what would you do if you won the lottery, kind of thing. What would you suggest to people? So if you're not, and as Will Smith says this too, if you stay ready, you ain't got to get ready. And so the thing is, you want to be prepared every single time to give your pitch if you need to, or give your story, to give who you are and share some wisdom and knowledge. So the only way you do that is to continue to be confident in what you do.
Man, you're just too good at this. This isn't fair. I have no words. I'm just going to give you lots of props. Get you to 1,400 with that one. But yeah, you're so right. Just getting really polished at this, getting really focused at this, getting so intense at this, getting that elevator pitch, believing in yourself, loving the ability to give over to others the skills and attributes that you have to give to the world. That's what it's all about. And you're so on fire, man. I'm just such a big fan, and I'm so glad we got a chance to do this. So, hey, you can't wait to get ready. Got to be ready. Yeah, absolutely. That's not our words. That's Will Smith, but hey, yep. We'll take it. So let's also, if anybody wants to ask a question, feel free to, I don't know if you want to get on air or if you feel comfortable with that or not, but there's a couple ways you can ask questions. You can just write stuff in the send a message thing. If you want it to be flagged as a question for part of the broadcast, if you hit /Q and then write in your question, it'll appear on our screen as well. Look at that. I was even quoted today by you. Nice. Believe in yourself. All right. Shall we have Marvetta go on? What do you think?
Yeah, sure.
Let's do it. All right, Marvetta, you're on. Give her a second to join on. Hopefully technology will listen to us this time instead of just holding up. Every Blab, we get a little bit better with this stuff. And I think Blab is in beta anyway, which means that,
yeah.
See, they're not perfect either. Beta means it doesn't work correctly. We love Blab, never mind. Marvetta, it looks like you're still trying to connect. Wait, are we there? I don't know. Welcome, Daniel. Hey, we're going to try bringing you on once more. Hey, Marvetta, if it doesn't work, if you want to ask some questions or say some points, just drop it in the messages, and we'll be happy to jump on any concerns, questions, anything we can help with. Looks like Blab doesn't like you yet. That's okay. It didn't like me the first part of this broadcast. Questions for us, anybody? We'll spend another minute, see if anybody's out there. Guys, we could talk for probably 5 hours straight. I'm just going to guess. I don't think you want to hear that. Tech issues. Just wanted to say the Blab has been insightful and right on. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. We're going to star that message. Hang that one up on the wall. Because that's what it's about. Everybody's always like, oh, I got to help all these people. If you help one person, just imagine the ramifications of that. I have people that have been watching and following stuff I've been talking about for years, and they built businesses, and they say, I never would have been able to do this without you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, yeah, this blog post and this thing you did. I'm like, I don't even remember what you're talking about. But it's true. There are so many people that I've turned on to Twitter, to Blab, to all these different kinds of things. And if you can be that early adopter and polish and have this message and have a thing, Marvetta, we're going to try you once more. Third time's the charm. Third time's the charm. Let's do it. Come on. This is going to be the one. This is your night. And if not, it's in beta. Come on. I had a good feeling about it, but I don't know. It's okay. Well, we tried. Anybody have anything else to add before we sign off for this episode? Well, we can leave it at that. I think we've given everybody quite a lot to chew on. And yes, you tried. Great participation. We really loved having you on. Wonderful, insightful points and questions. Feel free to drop in any other links. I'm going to have to go in just a little bit. And Ebong, I don't know if you have any time to hang out.
Me too as well.
Yeah.
I got to go in a little bit as well.
Okay, excellent.
So yeah, guy, look, I want to say this much, that I'm really thankful. Thanks for reaching out and making this work. I know you were traveling and you're not in your home state. So to take the time to talk, to share your time with me. I'm always humbled by that, and I really do mean that. Every time I do a blab or an interview, it doesn't matter who I talk to, doesn't matter what we're talking about. I know that there are other people in the world you could be talking to, and you chose to speak with me this week. So I really appreciate it. Appreciate having me. I appreciate other people being here, watching, all the people who stayed to watch and to learn more about how to get attention and how to get noticed. The key is this: it's doable. There's one thing I would share with this. I want to mention too is that I'm also launching. I'm launching a course called How to Grab Media Attention, and as of right now, you have access to 3 free videos if you want, and you can go to howtograbmediaattention.com, and you can learn. You literally get 3 free videos to teach you how I grab media attention for my business, my brand, and my blog. And that's just a quick, free, easy course starter. 10-minute, 13-minute videos, 3 videos, and you can learn a lot more about. Go a little bit deeper into things you can do. So we'll share that out there. And again, my goal is to give value and to share my value with other people. So
it's been nothing but a pleasure, sir. I hope you definitely put that link into the chat here. I started listening to a sampling of the videos, and it's just solid gold, guys. You don't know what you're missing. This man knows how to grab media attention. We initially met in the media, so that's proof in the pudding right there. And seriously, he's so great at this that you need to hear everything he's saying. Go follow him on Facebook, stalk him, watch everything he's talking about. Within reason, okay? None of that creepy Justin TV stuff. Anyways, we wish you all a wonderful night. Thank you again, Ebong. It's been such a wonderful pleasure. We appreciate all 85 of you that have tuned in on this week's broadcast. We'll be pushing that out on the blog on nowsourcing.com. We always wrap this up where you got the recorded video. We're also going to push it out on the YouTube channel, and you'll see it everywhere. You'll see it on Blab, you'll see it on Facebook, you'll see it on our site, and you'll see it on YouTube. So if you can't get enough of us, that'll be it. So without further ado, we wish you all a wonderful night. Keep trying, everybody. Keep that.
Thank you, everybody.
Have a great night, guys. See ya.
See ya.